Heart First leadership isn't what you say, it's how you show up, how you regulate, how you communicate, and how you execute when it matters most. We are Heidi and Ryan Sawyer, and you are listening to the Heart First Leadership Podcast.
Morning routines. Why is this so important to me? I am very, very serious about this idea that starting each day with intention could be one of the most important components of any transformation or being a leader, of creating some new experience in life, is to be able to bookend your day. Morning routines, evening routines, ways that we engage in life on purpose, where we are truly being intentional. Now, you might hear some people talk about routines versus rituals, and I think it's important for us to dissect how these two things are different. Everybody has a routine. We are pattern making machines. I mean, our brains want to create patterns. So whether you think you have a morning routine or not, you do. You have a way that you get up, you go through your morning, you do your business, you have your coffee, and this is your normal routine, plus or minus a little things here and there. Now, rituals are something that is more of a devotion to your higher self, to your higher power, to a higher calling. And, a lot of people ask, well, am I really wanting to try to uncover what my higher calling is, what my meaning of my life is, what the purpose of my life is? Well, it's a basic human need. So I believe that all of us want to uncover what is the meaning of my life? What is my unique purpose? What is my unique gift that I can provide to the world? So we're not going to talk so much about the rituals that uncover that, but more about the concept of having a daily morning routine to get our life started out right, to get our day started out right. And what is the potential impact of that? So routines are something that we evaluate the week coming up. So in the integrated human performance method, we we'll take a look at, okay, what's this week going to ask of me, and how do I need to shape my morning to be able to show up fully for whatever's this day or this week is asking of me. So it might change and kind of shift. It might be 20 minutes one day. It might be an hour or 2 hours another day. I like to really work with people and say, if you were to start your day like it's going to be the most transformative day of your life, the most impactful day of your life, how would you start that day? To understand, to build the blocks and the components of that morning routine, and then to shrink it back down and find what we call a minimum. So we're going to dive into those different components and understanding how to prepare for a day. The better we get, I want to keep this in mind, the better we get at preparing for smaller moments in life, meaning even just preparing for each individual day or each individual meeting in life or a business meeting or whatever it may be, the better we're going to be at preparing for the big moments. I'm going to say that again. The better we are at preparing for the small moments in life or just the day in, day out grind, the better we're going to be at preparing for the big moments. So this is training. This is the ability to get better at preparation. So let's talk a little bit about understanding why is this important. So I'm going to try to sell you the importance of morning routines. Number one, as a father, I have recognized that my kid's baseline is my operating system, meaning the level that I operate at, my knowledge, my experience, how I connect dots, the level that I operate. So the level that I perform at, my operating system. That's my kid's baseline. That's what they're being exposed to. So if you want to raise your kid's baseline, you need to raise your own operating system. So how do we do that? Starts off with understanding that there is this spectrum between a victim orientation and somebody who is an active participant in their life and creating their life. So to go from, rather than life happening to you, it's life happening through you. And this is only done by setting intentions, by intentionally creating and developing the skill at practicing qualities in your life, projecting forward and seeing outcomes being completed, certain tasks, orientations of goals, of challenges, whatever it may be. But to take our lives from this natural place, which I believe anybody who's been through a transformational journey has gone down this road of recognizing I'm being a victim in one way, shape, or form. The world feels like it's against me. There's somebody out to get me. If this person would only be a certain way, then I would be okay. Well, there's a pendulum that can swing where we can then work our way from being a victim to a creator, but we got to do it through intention. So there's no better way than starting our day off with that intention. The other component of this is if I'm going to be a creator in my life, I need to act from a full cup. I can't expect myself to create the life of my dreams or to be the leader that I desire to be if I am trying to live life from an empty cup, right? So my goal is to learn how to fill my own cup. That's partly of like meeting my own needs, allow for myself to feel safe and secure in my own skin, but to become familiar with myself to such a level that I have confidence and I'm able to show others compassion. I'm able to stay calm in the midst of chaos. All these different things can be derived from starting each day with intention and learning how to build the blocks of a morning routine, which then turn into a devotion to our higher self. And then we can talk about the different type of rituals that we continue to use in our lives daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually to draw in our future, to draw in a higher concept of ourselves. Therefore, we're able to be in more service to others. But let's stay with this filling up the cup for a moment. You know, I believe a lot of people love to serve others because it helps to fill up their cup. And if you're serving others to fill up your cup, that means you're operating from a sense of lack. So when you start to recognize where you're operating from, then you're able to come back and realize, hey, you know what? I need to master this ability to fill up my own cup first. And then my cup is full. Now I am pouring into those around me. I'm pouring into my kids and my team, into my community from a full cup. That's service, meaning that I have more than I need. I'm able to give to others because my cup is overflowing. And so there's this level of first being selfish before I can be selfless. This self-mastery and service to others. And that's not going to happen by chance. That's going to happen by intention. And to come back to this point that we are pattern running machines, we get into conditioned patterns. I mean, I believe these patterns are created as quickly as like 48 hours. Thought patterns, feeling patterns. Some of these are deeply rooted in us, and other ones are just our new patterns of behaving, of eating patterns, of watching TV. 2 days later of watching a show at night, next thing you know, you're watching a show every night for 6 months going, we never used to watch TV. This just happened in our own home where we bought a new home. We never have had a TV for the last, 7 years. We haven't had a TV in our living room. Well, the home that we bought had a TV already mounted in the space above the fireplace. So we left it there. Next thing you know, we're watching shows every night. And I was like, wait a minute. How did this happen? This is not how we want to live. But
we are all leaders. If you're ready to stop waiting and start impacting your environment in a powerful way, we want to connect with you. Click the Book Now link in the show notes to book a call with a Heart First coach and discover what Heart First leadership can look like in your life and in your environment. Now back to the show.
We fell into an unconscious pattern of just allowing for ourselves to just take in whatever was on the show and watching Modern Family in The Office. And there's no judgment, but that's just not how we wanted to live. But these patterns can happen so incredibly fast. So when you start your day with intention, you're able to break a pattern. You're able to see and recognize the patterns that are not serving you. And you're able to then understand that you're either going to continue to operate from a place of unconscious patterning where you're reaffirming old patterns and they're becoming more ingrained in you, or you're able to create new ones. And so you can start to take this inventory and stock of your life saying, I want to create a different way of thinking, a different way of feeling, a different way of being, a different way of behaving. Well, if we don't hit pause and intentionally sit down and decide what that looks like, we're going to stay in the old pattern, because that's unconscious part of ourselves operates so strongly within us. We think we're awake and in control of what we're doing and thinking and feeling, but we're not if we don't learn to break the pattern. So one of the best ways to break that pattern is to set ourselves up for success by taking that inventory in the morning and setting a clear intention of who it is we want to be, what we want to accomplish, how we want that to feel, and all these different components. Now, I'm going to, at a later date, come back and break down all these different components, probably to a much finer detail, and unpack them further. So, right now I'm giving an overview. Okay. So let's understand the game we're playing here. The game we're playing, the old game, the victim game. The old game is trying to overcome struggle. That's out there in front of us, obstacles that are in front of us, to try to find some sense of freedom. Like, if I can just get past this obstacle, or get to that date, or get to that goal, or whatever that may be that's right in front of me, this is the old game. I'm trying to overcome. Right? So this is like playing defense. If it's a sports analogy, I'm playing defense, trying to solve problems as they arise. I'm redirecting the river, but I'm not removing the blockage. I'm saying, oh, no, guide this way, no, guide that way. And I'm constantly just trying to fit the puzzle pieces together to try to feel okay, to make myself feel safe and secure. So the river is constantly having to change directions. I'm constantly trying to redirect it someplace else rather than removing the blockage. If we can just remove the blockage or the boulder that's in the way that's causing the river to have to change directions, the river will flow freely. So the new game, what's the new game? The new game is learning how to sit down, be still, and find inner peace, inner freedom, where then now there is not an external struggle that's being created. Like, legitimately, our internal world is creating our external circumstances. And aren't you curious on how that's showing up in your life, and how many of your obstacles or struggles or challenges don't even need to be there if you learn how to clean the windshield, if you learn how to do the Etch-a-Sketch on your brain and find a place inside of you that feels free, where you're able to experience whatever you're experiencing without attachment, identification. Therefore, you're able to have this sense of inner freedom, create this internal domain that's independent of the external world. Therefore, obstacles dissolve in the world and clarity arises, clarity of next steps, clarity of vision, clarity of purpose. So then you can act from that purpose. So you're filling up your cup. You're not out there trying to figure out ways that you're trying to operate from a half full cup. Because again, understanding the external circumstance, the external obstacle are only there because of the internal disturbance that we're not removing, that we're not addressing. This comes back to the basic principle. There's a cause and an effect. And most of us are playing, and I have been guilty as this as much as anybody, in the world of effect, in the world of action, thinking that I had to force more to have more. Right? I had to create something externally to feel the way I want to feel. In action, trying to overcome, rather than understanding that if I just go inward and remove the blockage, and I decide intentionally to install different beliefs, different self-concept, I will allow for this life that is experienced as a river to flow freely, right? And here's the thing. I don't believe that all of us, now I'm creating my inner experience, therefore creating my outer experience. And I'm not convinced that all of us understand the game that we're playing. We think it's out there. We think it's overcoming. We think it's the goals. We think it's the money. We think it's the title. We think it's the achievement. The game you're playing is an inner game. And once you know the game you're playing, it makes it easier to win. Because these blockages that we're playing defense against, that we're constantly trying to shuffle our life around, is the mind maintaining its old conditioning because it's addicted to the chemical release and is trying to conserve energy. Again, I'm going to come back to this fact that our brain is a pattern-making machine. And so if we try to create a new pattern, it's going to take energy. So it thinks it's trying to keep you safe or survive to conserve energy by running the same old pattern and program, even though it's not serving you, even though it's not leading you towards your purpose, even though it's not leading towards your gift, even though it's not leading you toward an abundant, joy-filled life. The brain doesn't care. It wants to conserve energy, and it wants to continue to run the same old patterns and programs over and over and over because that takes less energy. So this blockage that's inside of us is your mind maintaining the past conditioning because the body's legitimately addicted to the chemical release and the hormonal release that happens when we run that program, right? And we attach and identify and uphold the narrative that reinforces this chemical chain that meets the criteria of the internal disturbance. So the inner game dictates what side of the ball you're playing on. Now, I've coached on both sides of the ball as a football coach. I've coached offense and I've coached defense. And as much as I love coaching defense and the grit and the mentality of it and having to force things and blitz and try to figure out how to stop the offense, I'm telling you right now, as a football coach, coaching offense is way more fun. Figuring out how you're going to score, how you're going to trick the defense, how you're going to show them one thing and do another. And it has way more of a mental game that is much more free and open and possible, where you're getting to dictate how you play the game. You're setting the pace. You're either getting in a huddle or going no huddle offense, and you're changing the pace of the game. Whereas on defense, you're just of mercy to whatever the offense is showing you. You have to be, if they're in a certain type of formation, you have to match that based upon their personnel. You're always playing defense. So once you get in touch with the inner game, that'll be able to dictate what side of the ball you play on. And now we're able to flip the script on the world and on your experience. Instead of using the external world to change how you feel, you're going to change your internal domain to create the experience you want. And if we don't take the time to sit down and create a routine that turns into ritual, that turns into devotion to your higher self and to a higher purpose, you're never going to be playing offense. You're never going to be calling the shots. You're never going to be the one actually doing the one that calls the play and sending the play. You're always going to be reacting to whatever's showing up. You're going to constantly be playing defense and have to adjust your play call based upon what's happening in the world. So time to flip the script. And when we do this, we have to understand something, that this world that we live in, where we think that what we want is out there in an achievement, that type of motivation never lasts, especially when we don't get consistent validation. So the important part is to understand if we can sit down and be still and create a morning routine through somatic movement, through breath, through meditation, through visualization, through journaling, through some self-discovery, through studying something new, and create this way of connecting to something that's greater than ourselves and the truth of us, then we will be able to remember who we are and operate from that place. We'll be able to create a creator mentality and no longer feel like the world is happening to us, but it's happening through us. We'll be able to go from playing defense, always trying to just react to what's happening around us, to calling the shots and sending in the play that we want to run and then executing it. We become more, once we become a practitioner, once we learn how to train our mind in the way that we can create specific outcomes and experiences in the internal domain, then we become the play caller of our own lives. We get to dictate the speed of the game. We get to speed up and slow down. This is a skill development. we're able to develop the skill of training your attention, training where your attention is, to hold your attention on your intention. This is a skill. It can be trained. I'm working with a couple of young athletes right now. And one of my young athletes, when we first started working together about 3 months ago, I'm telling you, he didn't have 8 minutes of attention control. 8 minutes into a Zoom call, and he's from across the country, I lost him. I would have to try to find ways to, hey, we're talking here, and bring him back, right? And I'd have to find ways to like engage with him and keep him interested in our conversations. 3 months later, fast forward, we're 40 minutes into a call, and I ask him, are you ready to do some mental training? And we're going to do some breathing and some concentration work and attention control and some visualization. And he's like, yeah, let's do this. And he sits up straight and he's ready. This last call we had just 2 days ago was the most impactful call I've ever been on with any client. And he has gone from a place where it's like working with somebody who's like, squirrel, squirrel. And I can't hold his attention to ready to take life by the reins and take control. But we have to train the mind to be able to hold its attention, to be able to have awareness. Like, this is skill to have awareness. I know you think you're aware, but if you don't practice awareness, if you don't practice non-judgmental awareness, if you don't practice the ability to connect to the part of you that's just noticing what's happening internally, the sensations, the vibrations, the fluctuations of your mind, the feelings and emotions and thought loops that are happening, that are creating your results and your outcomes in life, if you're not the one sitting back behind watching this, you're so wrapped up in the program, you don't even know it. You're in the conditioning of it. And this happens to all of us. But the better you get at being able to watch and observe, the more you realize that you were not in control. And now you're able to course correct and take control. You're able to project forward. You're able to project forward and actually build a deeper sense of intuition, build a deeper sense of that, of confidence and of calm and of clarity, to where when you project forward in life, you now know, like, that's where I'm going and nothing's going to stop me from getting there because I've already experienced it, whether that's the next day, week, month, quarter, whatever it is, next year. Every time you project forward, you're giving your body and your brain a reference point to work towards. You're giving yourself a taste of the future. Therefore, all then you have to do is go through the actionable steps to get you to a desired outcome, or a desired have to do is just get the hell out of the way and experience it and embrace what shows up. You're able to show up more fully because of this experience of being a practitioner, of starting your day with intention. So I'm going to recap. Can you tell that I really love the conversation of the importance of morning routines? And now here's the crazy thing. I actually believe that evening routines are more important. But we're going to get to those later. It's the number one high-performing habit of high performers. The number one high-performing habit is time in silence. The number one high-performing habit is time in silence. Is to slow down, to speed up. Is to create discipline. Is to have a way that you start your day with intention on a daily basis. To raise your own baseline. So your kids, your teams, and your community's baseline is raised because you raised your existing operating system. To go from victim of your life, where everything's happening to you, to creator, where everything's happening through you. To learning how to fill up your cup, so you're operating from abundance rather than trying to pour from an empty cup, where you're becoming aware of and given the ability to break the patterns in your life that are not serving you, and then reinforce the ones that are working for you. To be aware that this is an inner game that we're all playing in life, and to go from the old game of victimhood, where you're playing defense and you're constantly trying to overcome struggle, and you're constantly just trying to solve the problem as they arise and redirecting the river to try to make it work and try to make it flow, and trying to just adjust to whatever the offense is giving you, to playing offense, to being an offensive coach, and being able to set the pace of your life, to be able to call your own shots. Because once you know the game you're playing, it's easier to win. To be able to flip that script from the external world to the internal world, knowing that it's the internal world that's creating your external circumstances. And to remember that you're not your thoughts. that you're not this body, that you're something so much greater, that you're a spirit having a human experience, and to connect to that on a daily basis, the truth of who you really are. So you're more aware of it. So you're able to have a greater connection to it, and you have a greater capacity to operate from it, to develop this skill of being a practitioner. So you have better ability to hold your attention on your intention, to be able to have a better ability to let go of one moment and transition to the next. So you have the ability to project to future circumstances and give your body a taste of the future, to give yourself confidence and calm and clarity that you understand where you're going, how you're going to get there, and to surrender that process. So where do we get started? Oh, this is incredible, right? Man, I wish I would have started a morning routine when I was younger. Don't you? I'm so grateful that I've been prompted to go on this journey to understand the importance of it and the power of it. But you start off by setting a minimum. So you get started by saying, I'm going to do a morning routine for this amount of time, no matter what, no matter where I am or what I'm doing. That could be 1 minute, that could be 2 minutes, that could be 5 minutes, whatever that may be. A morning mindset minimum from the guy from the Seahawks. I can't even remember his name right now. Michael Gervais, it just popped in my head, talked about morning mindset minimum, 1 breath, 1 intention, 1 sense of gratitude, and be in the same place as your feet for 1 moment, right? So this can be a morning mindset minimum to get yourself started out right. Like, I don't care how small your minimum is. It's something that you're going to do every day, no matter what. And then you're going to build upon it. And these minimums can be what you're going to do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. Now that's when we're going to start to go down that path of something going from a routine to a ritual. But that's a different conversation. So set a minimum of time that you're going to sit down, be still, breathe, build these practices of attention, control, awareness, and journaling, right? A gratitude practice. There's all these different components, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So plan your morning, because here's the thing I've noticed is that if I don't know what tomorrow morning looks like when I go to bed tonight, then tomorrow morning ends up being a little bit all over the place. But if I legitimately take 2 minutes to write it out, I'm going to drink my water, I'm going to take a cold shower, I'm going to do this, that, the other, and this, and it's going to take 45 minutes, and then and this is what time I'm going to start, and this is what time I'm going to be done. It takes 2 minutes, right? I get up and I stick to it, I knock it out, and it's powerful. It's very powerful and impactful. When I don't plan it, I kind of like, what was I going to do this morning? I'm tired. I don't know. I need some coffee. And oh, shoot, I forgot to take my cold shower. And, okay, well, I'll just sit down here and breathe for a few minutes. I don't know if this whole thing works. I don't know. Right? That's the experience when I don't plan it. So plan it. And then designate and prepare your space, meaning that have a space in your home, in your office, somewhere that you're going to feel that you're not going to be disturbed. And it's going to be set up for you, meaning that, do you need headphones? Where's your journal? Is there a book that you want to read? Whatever it is, a space that you're going to use to reflect, to learn, to uncover, to explore, right? So have that space set up. Do you need some pillows, a blanket? What do you need? Have it set up the night before. So plan it, designate a space, and have it set up and set your minimum. Now, the different components, and this can be something that constantly changes, but a few different components of a morning routine consists of this: water intake, becoming aware of your first thought. These two things I couple together. So water intake, to preload water. We wake up, we're dehydrated, and that's so incredibly important to front load that water. Okay, so that's a great way to start your day. And even maybe there's a sense of gratitude as you drink that water. So you're already opening yourself up. I personally love cold exposure right out of the gate. I love to overcome the resistance first thing in the morning. I love to do something hard right away. Plus, it just kind of brings me online. If I'm still got a little bit of residue from the evening before or from sleep, nothing like a cold shower or some cold exposure to knock all that residue off. But again, any of these components can be moved around, changed, simplified, taken out. It's your journey, your routine. Somatic movement, I think, is incredibly important. Some sort of internal experience of movement. So yoga, tai chi, qigong. And we'll talk more about somatic movement. We'll do a whole podcast on that. Breath practice and or meditation and or a visualization component of your practice, right? So start off with just the simplest breath practice. breath awareness, work on your mechanics of your breathing, work on the cadence of your breathing, work on the volume or the CO2 tolerance of your breathing. There's all these different pillars of breath that we teach, depending on where you are, again, in the depth of your own practice, like navigate that. And maybe that leads into a meditative practice, maybe it doesn't. And eventually maybe that leads into a visualization practice, and maybe it doesn't. But to have that component where you're connecting to your breath, you're connecting to the present moment, you're becoming online and aware, and you're developing attention control. You're able to then eventually develop the witness and other things. And we'll talk more about these different concepts. And I've had podcasts in the past that we've talked about them as well, but we'll keep diving into them. And then a journaling practice, the power of writing. We tend to, because of technology and phones and computers, we've gotten away from writing. I mean, I'm telling you, something happens when you put the pen to paper. Something happens. And so whether you're journaling a gratitude, or you're journaling a vision, or whether you're just writing down a to-do list, journaling, do not let it brush over top. I'm telling you, it's incredibly important and powerful. And the last piece is sun exposure. Now, maybe there's other pieces of your morning routine that I didn't add here. Studying is one, but sun exposure is really important for circadian rhythms. So getting outside first thing in the day and letting yourself get some sun into your eyeballs is incredibly important. But outside, not behind a window. Just even for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, So maybe you're even able to make your morning routine outside. And then the last piece is to study something new, different. Maybe whether you want to study something that is personal development or otherwise, but a moment of taking in new information is going to help to create a new concept of yourself. Okay. So water intake, cold exposure, somatic movement, breath meditation or visualization, journaling, sun exposure, and to study something. These are the different components that you could potentially embark upon. Now, do I do all these every day? No, but I do most of them. And they're all part of the day, one way or another. And like I told you, start with the most impactful vision of your day. Like if I started my day today, and today was going to be the most impactful day of my life, how would I start my day? And then chunk that back down into small little bite-sized chunks of saying, okay, I'm going to turn that 2-hour or 4-hour morning routine of meditation, breath, of somatic movement, of journaling, of all these different components. I'm going to shrink that down into 20 minutes. And if you do it for a month, if you do it I promise you'll find levels of potential and clarity and confidence, and you will eventually uncover your purpose in life. If done with enough earnestness, you'll uncover an aspect of yourself that's been hidden. You'll extract your gift. And there's another podcast. But you will extract something inside of you that's asleep. You will awake it. And then you'll be able to operate from it. Otherwise, you're going to be continually stuck in the old game, in the old patterns, in the old programs of trying to pour out of an empty cup. And the baseline that you're operating at will exist at the same place it's been before. Therefore, your kid's baseline won't change. Your team's baseline won't change. You're going to stay in this potentially, you may not even know it, in a victim orientation rather than shifting to creator and playing the new game of playing offense rather than defense. I'm telling you, in life it's so much more fun to play offense, to call the shots and to set the tempo than it is to try to play defense. But the most impactful part is to remember who you are. Because you're not your thoughts, you're not your body, you're not this sense of separation that we live with. The truth of you is so much more. So I didn't really plan this podcast too much. I wrote down a few notes and let it rip. So hopefully it lands on you. Please, if it intrigues you to build or to deepen your morning routine, dive into our 5-day morning routine challenge. It starts August 8th. And we'll do more of these in the future. Hop into our IHP community and poke around. We got some free resources in there, and just excited to continue this journey together. And it feels good to do a solo cast. It's been a while. I've done a lot of interviews, so it's good just to get back on here and do a little rant and rave, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you for listening. Remember, leaders go first. Alignment matters, and the environment that you create is the legacy you'll leave. We'll see you on the next episode.